This is going to be a long format video about fixing an FS55 RC string trimmer from Stihl. This is a really common model, and lots of people have been giving feedback that they like these long format, step-by-step process videos. So I'm going to do another one, and we'll see if people like it. So this belongs to my next door neighbor, and he brought it over and said it died on him and more or less won't start again. He changed the air filter and the fuel filter, but it didn't make a difference, and he asked me to take a look at it. So first thing I did was try and start it and couldn't. I removed the air filter and air filter cover, sprayed some carb spray in there. It also didn't work. It wouldn't start. I removed the spark plug, which I'll show you here, and found that it was very carboned up. Let me get some good light on here. So lots of soot. And so I changed it just to rule it out real quick, and was able to get it started, but it only starts for just a few moments. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and sounds like, because it's kind of an odd sounding machine, and that way you can maybe compare this to what your machine looks and sounds like. So ignition on, I'll go ahead and choke it and prime it, but listen specifically to how it sounds, which if you've worked on enough of them, you'll recognize it kind of sounds weird. Anyway, that's what I noticed. So let's see if I can get it. Okay, so I got it started, and as I pulled the throttle, you could hear the engine rev up, but it sounded like really super muffled. And I quickly figured out what that is, at least first level figured out, and I'm going to show you, and then we'll get down to the bottom of it, because I don't actually know entirely what's wrong. So if you look, this thing does not spin freely anymore. If you do this, it shoots back. If you do this, it shoots back. So basically, the engine is in some way, shape, or form seized to the shaft, or something in here is seized. So it's kind of like taking a Toyota Corolla and trying to pull a fifth wheel. It's just super hard on the engine. The engine can't get the load moving. And whenever you have a situation where an engine is overloaded, whether that's a Corolla and a fifth wheel, or a weed whacker with way too much string, then you end up getting a lot of carbon buildup in the engine. So that's why this is. So basically, root cause is basically engine won't start, spark plug is too sooted over to fire. It's too sooted over to fire because there's excessive carbon buildup because there's an excessive load because something's binding because, well, we're going to find out now. So first thing, inside of here you have the clutch. So you can barely make it out. Unless you know what you're looking for, it's hard to see. But basically, there's a drum in here, and that drum attaches to the shaft. And inside the drum is a set of weights that, through centrifugal force, get thrown out and connect the engine to the weed whacker. If you didn't have that clutch, then as soon as you started the engine, that would always be spinning. In fact, if your clutch is seized, that's the symptom. So anyway, let's get into it. What I did notice is when I do this, I'm not seeing anything move up here. So the binding, is kind of between here somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I've not already looked into this. I've decided it's kind of more fun, and people seem to like when I do it live. So we're going to do that. There's some disadvantages to doing things live. You end up maybe making a kind of slow video that could have been edited, but also people seem to like it because there's a certain element of authenticity, I guess. So I think the first thing I'll do is remove this screw so I can get this off. T27. All right, let me grab something a little stiffer. Okay. Okay, so now we have the head separated from the shaft. And now we'll see what this head does. Okay, so this head spins freely now. None of that back and forth stuff. So that all looks fine. So it's very unlikely that the problem is anywhere in there. And if we look into the end of the shaft. Bad camera work, but there's really nothing going on in there that is obvious to me. So the next thing we'll do is separate the engine. That's going to be done mostly through these T27s on the bottom side here. I think that's all of them. Maybe one of these doesn't have to be done and one does have to be done. I don't remember which one's which. We'll just take them both out for now. Oh yeah, and then there's one. Sorry, I'm a little bit off camera. Go ahead and give me a thumbs down for that. Okay, I think that's now all of them. So we can separate this. These things are kind of easy to separate and annoying to put back together, which is common whenever you have any big injection molded plastic piece, which is kind of flimsy. Okay, so here's the clutch I was referring to earlier. I'll bring in closer. And we'll go ahead and see if we can get this thing separated. Okay. And we'll go ahead and just pull. So here's the big shaft, the hollow part of the shaft. Can't see anything interesting going on in there. Here's the cable. And the cable just slips into the clutch like that. Well, it seems like this cable is somehow bound up, although I don't quite yet know how. And then here's the clutch. And the way you get these clutches apart is, so this seems to be working fine. This is supposed to slip. But just for fun, since we're here, I'll go ahead and remove this so you can see what it's like in there. Can't remember if it's a T27. I think it is. I want to say it's a T27. Oh. I should have loosened this up a little bit more. Yeah, this is the problem with doing stuff live, is there's a little bit of waste. Okay, I'm going to change my mind. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not concerned about what's going on in here. I just thought it'd be interesting to show everybody, but I don't want to waste everybody's time. All right, so we're going to go back here now. All right, I am curious about what's going on here. You can see that that looks funky, and I think this is somehow part of the problem, although I'm not sure. But it looks like to me, so this screw comes in from, down here. And it kind of looks to me like maybe someone put in the wrong screw there. I know one of them is shorter and somehow messed that up, which caused the shaft to bind. I'm going to put this shaft back in there and see what it feels like. Oh yeah, okay, so I'm trying to put this in. I can feel it's quite stiff right here at the end. Something's going on there. So I have to say, this is a new one. I've never quite seen this issue before, which is good. Something new to learn. Let's see if I can get this out of here. There's a chance my neighbor is going to be watching this. I know he subscribes to my YouTube channel, so I can say all kinds of things about him, like, dude, what'd you do? Although I'm not sure it was anything he did. Yeah, so if you look in here, you can see that there's some damage. That's definitely abnormal. And so I think what happened is basically the screw caused the shaft to get caught in here, and it ended up just giving a ton of resistance, which again gives you the trying to tow a fifth wheel with a Toyota Corolla. So, or at least that's the analogy I always use. So here you can see this insert is starting to come out because I'm kind of pounding it through. So sorry, a little bit off camera. So that's what you have inside of this tube. So now I have a completely empty tube. Absolutely nothing inside. So there's nothing interesting going on in there except for the damage at the end. And now we have this tube, and this is basically what you'd probably call a shaft guide tube, something like that. And basically they need a big thick tube like this for stability and strength, but then you just have a relatively small cable that runs in the middle of it. So this looks fine and normal to me. I don't think there's anything here going on. I think the main issue here was this deal. So I'm going to go wash this and see if we can't reuse it or if we have to order a new one. So I'm convinced we only got to do a couple things. We got to fix this pipe a little bit, this tube. And then I'm convinced that this piece can be reused. Obviously, you could order a replacement. That's obvious. But I think I can trim it a little bit and still get it to serve its purpose. At the end of the day, it's just for a neighbor. He's not even a very good neighbor. So I'm just going to try it again. Just a joke. Just seeing if he's listening. Okay, anyway, I also took apart the clutch. I thought maybe you'd be interested in seeing that. So this, basically inside this hole goes the cable that runs down to the cutter head. And then inside here is the drum. This is a polished surface. It's a T25, not a 27. That's why I was struggling with it, and it's getting a little embarrassed live camera here. And then over here on the engine side, you have the clutch. And so you can see this is the crankshaft. You have these two springs that keep these two shoes small, but through centrifugal force, they open. And once they expand and sling out, just like a merry-go-round, then they engage this hub and then get everything moving. So if you ever have these off, it's nice to clean them up from dust and debris. So I'll do that off camera. I don't think that's so interesting. I'll just use some gasoline. It's a great solvent for this kind of thing. But back to this. So to fix the inside of this tube, I'm going to use a pair of specialty pliers that you probably don't own, and I wouldn't recommend buying, at least not from Snap-on. Waste of money in this application. But these are battery terminal expansion pliers. So you put this inside of a battery terminal and you open it up. But it will be perfect for this because I can restore or at least improve the concentric nature of this tube by working my way around. And that's off camera, but back to good. And then I'm going to take, I'm going to do this off camera too because it's noisy and not interesting, but I'll show you a tool I'm going to use. I have a small one of these that I'm going to put up in there and clean the inside because there is a burr. But again, I'm going to do that off camera. I don't think it's interesting. This doesn't require very much at all. Maybe just a little snip here. It's not perfect and it's not new, but I think it's not damaged in a way that will keep it from performing its purpose. So I'm going to get the inside of this tube cleaned up. I'm going to get the clutch back together, and then we'll redo it. We'll do the assembly together. It's been a couple days, and I found out I needed to get a new clutch. And I didn't capture all of this on film, sorry for that. But what happened was the screw inside this clutch, this little guy in there, was broken off on inside the crankshaft. I had to get it out of the crankshaft. I got lucky. This doesn't always go well. I used some left-handed drill bits. So these are basically normal drill bits, but the flute goes in the opposite direction, so you drill in reverse. And the benefit of drilling in reverse is that as the drill bit cuts into the bolt, sometimes it'll work the bolt back out. In my case, that didn't happen, so I had to pound one of these in. These work okay. My experience has been that basically broken bolts are always disastrous. There's really no awesome, easy solutions. I've tried extractors of many types, and they're all difficult, but I got kind of lucky, I think. So bought a new clutch for about 30 bucks, or a clutch hub, I should say. This is the clutch itself, because this bolt, this little screw, you cannot get yourself. And it's actually a T20, not a T27 or 25. So I know that I didn't damage it. I thought to myself, well, did I break it? But I know that I didn't, because you can't even get a T27 or 25 in here. It was broken, likely because the engine was trying to turn and this thing was all jammed up. So yeah, anyway, so we're going to put this back together now, and we'll see how everything holds up. I called the Stihl dealer. This little part was like 50 cents, but they didn't have any and couldn't order any, and so I'm just going to do without it. I'm pretty confident that it's not going to make any meaningful difference whether I have it or not, so I'm moving forward in that direction. Also, my neighbor came by, the guy who owns this machine, and he told me that he had taken this casing apart before. And so you'll notice that there's two screws, a short and a long. Well, let me rephrase that. There are 5 or 6 that are long and 1 short. And I think it sounds like he put the long one into the short hole, which caused this problem. And then I don't think it showed up right away. It took some time to show up, but eventually it led to this problem. So I think we have our root cause analysis here complete. That someone worked on a machine and put a screw back in the wrong place and caused all this added friction. So no biggie, it happens. If you've never seen, by the way, if you've never seen a tool like this, these are really cool. They call them like a bit driver or hex driver. It's basically a ratchet, but it takes these types of things, and it's really handy because you can get really short bits to fit in there, and you can get into super tight places. And this one is made by Vera, a German company, but there are several manufacturers. I happen to like Vera quite a bit and would recommend this one, but it's not to say it's the only one that is of any type of value. That's not going to help us. I'm just going to hold this here. Okay. All right, so this next part is quite a fiddly job, and I don't know how long it's going to take me. It might be pretty boring to watch, but I'm gonna leave it because you might be fiddling through this job as well. And one thing I don't like is I don't like editing out things that make me look stupid. Even though I don't have any desire to look stupid, I'm not here to be like this wizard mechanic. So I'm gonna fiddle around with this thing and try and get this housing and the shaft back in, and I'll try and talk about some tips and tricks as I do it that may be helpful for you. We'll see. So I'm going to take this bushing and insert it back here, and I don't know that the orientation actually matters, the indexing, but I'm going to keep an eye on that as I go through this process. And I have this head off. That doesn't really matter at the moment. We can add that later. So it's kind of a question of getting all these things lined up, trying to remember, how did the trigger go on here, just getting everything lined up. It can really be a pain, but again, we're going to do it together so that any mistake I make, maybe you can avoid. Also, I've done this many times, but sometimes it's helpful to see somebody else make the mistake. So, all right, so I'm rotating the shaft here at the end by the head off camera, and I can see if I pull the shaft out and spin it, nothing happens as I insert it. So I know I'm inserted all the way. And you can kind of see a discoloration right here that gives you a hint as to where this shaft goes. Also, there's a little plastic stop here that basically keeps this shaft controlled in this direction. So then this guy has to fit up here like this, and then this interaction has to be just right to release the trigger. So this is definitely a scenario where you kind of want to fiddle with some things. And oh yeah, okay, this is going to spread and go around here. It's been a while since I've done this exact model, so I'm going to have some fiddling to do. Yeah. All right, my wife's going to make some smoothie for this morning. The blender's going to go on, so I'm going to cut. All right, so she's some smoothies made. Let's get back to this. Okay, so This thing has some posts in it and some holes, so it helps you find the position fairly easily. Although this still isn't right. So probably, I think you have to pull the trigger up as you assemble this piece. So let's try that. These kinds of things are fairly difficult to film, I think. So I'm not going to put too much effort into filming this. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working yet. The trigger moves whether this is down or not. Not that my neighbor would care much about that, but I still want to try and make it right. These things are really quite fiddly. Perhaps what I'm going to do is get this out of here first. It's not that often that you have to split the case halves like this. So you can see these pins and you can see these holes. So that gives you a pretty clear idea of where it's going to go. And then this guy has to sit in here like so. And then okay, there it is. Okay, all right, I see how it's going to work now. I think you don't have to pull this trigger as you do this step. I'm going to slide this through. See, this is the part of the YouTube videos that I sort of feel like people don't want to see. You know, it's boring and it's clunky and makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. But a lot of people have given me the feedback that, you know, they like seeing this, and also it gives a more realistic viewpoint of what they might encounter if they decide to tackle this job. You know, they note, and I agree with them. I mean, I think they're onto something. They note that, you know, if I were to edit this out, then the YouTube video would be much shorter and quote unquote less wasteful. But it would also make it look like this job is just a piece of cake, you know, and you'll be done in 5 minutes. And then when they get into it, you know, if they watch this video and they decide like, oh, okay, well, I'll tackle this job, then, you know, they get into it and they start struggling, and it's because, you know, I've edited out the difficult bits, and you know, I don't want that. So I understand where they're coming from, and I think they make a valid point. So I'm gonna leave this kind of stuff in, even though it's kind of not very entertaining, but all right, here we are again. Not quite working. So I have the shaft over here propped up on a can of carburetor spray to change the angle a little bit. It feels like this thing is not going all the way down as it should. The trigger works even if you don't do that, so that's not correct. And it seems to me that this piece is not getting down all the way, but I'm not quite sure why. This is having a tendency to pop out of there, so that could be part of it. Let's see. Try not to get my head in the... Let's bring this down a little bit. Maybe that will be better filming. There we go. All right, so right now the trigger down here doesn't want to move, but if I lift, then it does. So that's what we're looking for. It's just fiddly. It's just what I call fiddly job. It's just, you know, it's you kind of got to mess with it. And then also that's what you have to do here. So you have to, let me move this whole assembly over now. So you got to thread in the spark plug wire, the ignition wire through that hole. And then this is a job, you definitely need patience. Oh, this is the other thing, these wires, you got to really pay attention to them. And I may have already screwed this up because I think the wires go beneath this shaft. Yeah, of course they do. I think they do. They probably do. You know, unless you're doing this work every day, I feel like you know, I mean, what I'm doing right now, I've done many, many times, but you know, I haven't done it in the last week. And yeah, okay. And so you always kind of just forget the order of things. Okay, so these wires come all the way down here, and they sit in this little tray for protection purposes. And you need to put them back in there, otherwise they're going to get crushed, and then the machine might not start properly because it thinks the ignition switch is off. Okay, so hopefully you can, well, let me bring you in close. So you can see now these wires run in these nice little trays to keep them out of the way. And then I think maybe I've also stumbled upon the best method for this setup, which is to have the cable in, have this in, and then slide the shaft through. I think that might be the easiest way to do that. So right now the trigger doesn't want to close, of course. Let's see. Nope, just messed it up because it dropped. Ugh, this type of work is so annoying. It's maddening. Nope, still not. All right, so this orange trigger release here has gotten stuck up in there. So let's do this all again. Now my wires are out of the tray. Awesome. Okay, there we go. So trigger won't go until this is released, then it will go. Part of what makes this so fiddly is that, you know, there's not a second case half up here. So the whole thing is kind of not yet secure. We're just going to rake these wires back into their tray. Now we're going to put some pressure on this assembly, like so, and slide this through, and hopefully we'll get it all in there. Okay. I'm also going to, okay, and with a little pressure, trigger does not move, trigger moves. Good. All right. Don't touch it. Okay, so now wires are in place. Spark plug wire, I'm not going to show it. I don't want to move the machine. It's going to go through there. And then I'm going to start dropping this into place. This part of the job is, you know, it's just so fiddly. And it's boring too. Like, it's not satisfying or fun. It's just like this. It's kind of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle that wasn't well made. So like the pieces just don't fit that well. And I'm not saying the machine's not well made. I'm just saying that, you know, this is a big floppy piece of plastic. You know, it's not a, you know, incredibly rigid part because they want it to be lightweight, which I endorse, but it still just makes the whole process just really fiddly. And it's one of those things, there's a huge, in my opinion, there's a huge temptation to force the process, you know, to just start squeezing and jamming things into place. I can pretty much tell you it's not worth doing, because you'll always find that you don't get away with it. So Okay, that's pretty good. And you just want to use really light pressure. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, if it's meant to go together, it'll go together easily. If not, it won't. So, okay, so everything right now is stable. So I'm going to grip it really tight, basically, and turn it over and start to get some screws in. Should have had my gun ready. I didn't. If the case halves come together with relative ease, then you're on the right track. Sorry, I'm trying to film this at the same time. If something seems like it's not going in properly, don't force it. All right. Get a couple in and together. And then see, you know, how's the seam? Is the seam lined up? And in that case, it is. Is the trigger working? So you can't push. Now you can push. Good. Okay. So now you can start doing the rest of them. And again, you have this one shorty. And the shorty goes right there. And be careful with an impact gun. It is a better choice to do these by hand, but if you live life on the edge, like me, or if you've done this a lot of times, then it can be appropriate to use a gun. I've probably fixed 500 machines like this, so okay. So now we're gonna throw the air filter back in real quick. I had this out because I was testing. I wasn't sure if it was a carb problem, so I had. Oops. I need to put that fuel line back on. I took that off earlier. I'm almost wondering if this is an aftermarket air filter housing, because I don't remember these lines being so difficult to get to. But maybe it's because I normally take it off. And I'm just going to do that really quick. 8 mil, because a leaky fuel line is no good. And you need a thin wall. You need a thin wall 8 millimeter to get in there. Where is my thin wall? 8. Another good example of bad filmmaking, searching for a socket. But again, just doing whatever I can to keep the authenticity high and not make this stuff look overly easy. Here we go. These are some really neat pliers made by Knipex 31160. They're smooth inside. There's no ridges like needle nose, where you normally have ridges. And so you can grab rubber fuel lines and things like that and manipulate them quite well without the risk of, well, there's still a risk, but there's a smaller risk of ruining them. Getting this little guy started is always a challenge, as he slips down into the socket, of course. There we go. All right. Now that that's back together properly, last thing to do is to put the head back on. So I'm gonna throw the machine back around so you can see the head side. So this is now spinning nicely. I can hear the clutch over there moving. I'm gonna put this in there, and you just kind of wiggle this, and also rotate the head, because you want, basically you have this square shaft that's going to go into that square hole down there, and it can miss, or it can get jammed. And like this is right here is an example of why it won't go in. There we go. And now when you spin this, listen to see if you can hear the clutch moving way down there. And if you can't, then you're probably not in place yet. And then tighten this down. Okay. So I'm going to make a quick camera cut so I can move the tripod, and then we'll see how it runs. All right, a couple more things we're going to do before we finish this off. So I have, it's kind of mounted in the corner of my garage, but I have this tool. It's a little tiny sandblaster just for spark plugs. And I need that today because this spark plug is very carboned up. So you hook compressed air up to it, and then there's this little rubber gasket in the top with a hole, basically. You put the spark plug into there, and then this bag over here has sand in it, and you spin and rotate. So we'll do that for a few moments. Pull it out. Doesn't look that much better yet. Does sometimes, oops, take some time. And I like to hold the bag up and make sure enough sand is getting into the sandblaster. Okay, slightly improving. When they're really carboned up like this, what you can also do is do a quick cleaning on a wheel. Just to save time, I'm going to do that first. So the sandblaster is still really good for all the little nooks and crannies that are you don't really get to with the wheel. But to save time for the video, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm also starting to lose air pressure. So you can see now, you can see the white of the ceramic, and you can see the sandblasted surface. So it's a big improvement. And then you shouldn't really need to do this, but I just like to make sure there's no residual sand in there, since sand in an engine is, well, bad. Okay. Last couple things we're going to do. I noticed his pull cord has gone a little bit limp. No fault of my neighbor, I'm sure. So I'm going to fix that for him really quick. And then we should have this thing done. Huh? I'm filming, yeah. So tighten this up. Boots get in the way. By the way, if I ever look like an idiot on here, it's sometimes in part because I'm trying to film and not get my arm in the way. But if it ever looks like, man, this guy never even picks up a wrench, he barely knows how to handle a ratchet, it's often because I'm trying to film and not ruin the cut. So, all right, we're going to remove this starter assembly really quick. It should just be 3 T27s out the back. I think you can get it off. Yeah. Okay. So when you have a pull cord like that, which is kind of gone limp, you can normally fix that with some oil. And where you want to get the oil is in between the white disc and the orange housing. But since we're in instructional mode, I'll just take this apart really quick and show you. So pay close attention to the way that this goes. So you have this little clip, it goes to the left. You can reverse this and then it doesn't work properly. So you want to be careful how you do that. Pictures are helpful. And you have this little washer. And then you have this little pawl. And then you have this disc. So we're going to carefully remove the disc. Oh, I just heard the spring bind, or I heard the spring release. So normally, just putting some lubricant on there, WD-40, something like that, 3-in-1 oil, will fix that problem that you saw. And this one's actually pretty clean, I'm surprised. Sometimes they're really nasty and dirty in there, but they do bind up. Sorry. Not always used to working with people trying to look over my shoulder. And then when you put it back on, you just want to be cognizant of these little teeth that have to basically go and grab. You have to go and grab that. And you can kind of test to see if it worked properly, because you get kind of a bungee, okay? And I'll show you how to increase the tension, because now we have even more. But first we'll put it back together so nothing can slide around on us. The washer on there. Put the pawl on there. And then this part is very important. You have to remember that that little leg went out to the left. You can do it that way. You don't want to do that. That will cause you trouble. In my opinion, you know, things should be designed so that they cannot be installed incorrectly, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm in my own way here. Okay, so basically what we're gonna do, first of all, we're gonna work it like that. You want to be careful you don't pull it so far that you damage the spring. So you pull it all the way out and just kind of try and work that oil in there. But to get rid of all of this, you're going to utilize that little notch right there. Ditch the gloves. I had them because the grease inside the string trimmer shaft is such a pain in the butt. But so what you want to do, this is kind of hard to do on camera. So you want to line up the rope with that little notch, and then you kind of want to reach down and pull it like that. And you want to put the rope in that notch so that you can kind of easily control the wheel. Okay. Now, what you want to think about is you want the wheel to spring this way, because you want, you know, I'm going to pull it this way and you want it to suck it back in. And so in order to make it more springy, you have to wind the wheel in the opposite direction. We're going to do 2 times like that. Then you hold the wheel with your thumb and you let that back out. And now we only have a little bit of tail. Okay, so we've improved it. So we're going to do that one more time. Pull it out a little bit. Put that in there. Turn the wheel turn the wheel 1 time like that, and I think I lost it. So I lost 1 revolution, so I'm gonna do 2. And then now this pulls all the way in. Now, what you do need to make sure when you do this, you can overwrap it, okay? So you're gonna pull this all the way out as if you were starting it, hold it here, and then make sure that there's still a little bit of spring left and that you're not bottomed out. In this case, I can feel that I'm basically bottomed out, and that's not good because the user can break the rope. So I think I wrapped 1 too many times. So now I'm going to take a wrap out, and then you basically just reverse the process to do that. So you hold the wheel and the rope and you come back 1 revolution. Okay, like that. But now it's a little bit limp. Okay, so it's not ideal. So the other thing that you can do, I'm going to try it one more time. I wasn't sure if I had an extra wrap in there or not. I couldn't tell. I'm looking at the screen as I'm trying to film, and I couldn't really tell what happened. So I'm going to give it one more wrap, like so. So now we're tight here, which is good. But again, I'm going to pull it all the way out, hold the rope with my hand, and I want to see how much additional movement we have in the spring here. Okay, that's okay. I can live with that. If you're completely bottomed out, then what can happen is when you pull the rope, you'll snap the spring inside. The other thing you could do, if you were stuck where 1 less revolution left it hanging and 1 additional revolution got it tight, is you can just pull the string out, cut it, and just cut out that little excess. But in this case, we are able to get it. So, all right, so now we'll put it back in there. And when you put it back in, you got to do a little bit of wiggling because you want these grooves on the wheel to fit inside this. Well, it's the crankshaft is what it is. So you got to take care. You also got to pay attention to how the fuel tank goes in to this little guy here. There's these fuel tank grommets here, and you have to get those lined up. So again, a little bit of a fiddly job, I would say, but with a little bit of care. So there's 2 grommets. Let's just show that. There's 2 grommets over here, here and here. So I'll just remove this so you can see. So those 2 grommets right there, and then there's one up there. Those have to be put in properly first so that the fuel tank is in its position. And then you can slide this one on. Again, paying attention to fuel tank position, and you can tell that's close. The fuel tank basically gets cinched down in between this and this. Okay, so when you think you got it, don't run the screws in all the way. Just run the screws in a little bit. That way, if you're wrong, you don't bind and destroy anything. Okay, and see if, as you pull this, are you able to move the clutch? So that's good. Make sure that these plastic pieces are going together. Make sure that the fuel tank is snug. Go slow. Make sure nothing's binding. There we go. The orange one slips under the white one. There you go. And don't just do one all the way down. Do a little each. Do each one a little bit at a time. We say 3 points make a plane. So once you have 3 points, then you have a plane surface, but you want to make sure you don't get it bound. And make sure that's tight, and you're ready to go. All right, let's take it to the ground. One thing to keep an eye out for after you work on a machine, especially if you've been flipping it upside down and stuff, there might be a lot of fuel in the cylinder. So you might need to take out the spark plug, pull the machine, dump it over, make sure there's not a bunch of fuel in there. When you're flipping the machine all over, fuel can run from the carburetor in there. So that may be a factor for you. Keep an eye open for that. And I just have a few tools here ready to adjust the carburetor, flashlight just in case, and then, well, just laying there. So, all right, so let's see. I'm not going to choke it at first because there might still be fuel in the cylinder for reasons I just explained. So we'll just see how it goes right off the bat. Okay, good. So you probably see a lot of smoke coming out of here. That's probably because of exactly what I just explained, how there's yeah, and there's actually some oil coming out. So there's probably a lot of um, oil and gas mixed in the system because we are flipping it all over and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it again, hold it open for a couple moments and see if we can get it cleared up. Smoky. Okay, so it's pretty warmed up now. You probably noticed that the smoke went away. So now I'm just going to do a few notes about tuning the carburetor. I'll bring you in close here. I've done some other videos on this, but maybe to do it all in one place is helpful. So there are 2 carburetor adjustment screws, plus there's a screw that controls the idle speed. So this one up here just controls the idle speed. So basically, as you crank that down, it's just the equivalent of pulling the trigger more. It just controls the throttle position. These 2 screws control how much fuel is going into the engine compared to the fuel. Excuse me, compared to the air. So we want what's called a stoichiometric ratio, which is 14.7 parts of air to 1 part of fuel. And as we loosen these, we let more fuel in. So think of these as like the spigot on a garden hose. Lefty-loosey means the looser the connection means the more water comes out. So as you loosen these, lefty-loosey, you get more fuel, making the mixture richer. And as you tighten these, you let in less fuel, making the mixture leaner. Now, there's almost always 2, not always, but almost always 2. If there is 2, the one closest to the engine controls the ratio at idle, and the one furthest from the engine or closest to the air filter controls the mixture off idle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the engine, go wide open throttle, and I'm going to loosen it and richen it until you hear it do something called four-stroking. This is a 2-stroke machine, but four-stroking is when it's so rich that it basically fires twice per cycle or per revolution. So I'm gonna do it. There's not always super good videos on the internet about this, so I'm gonna try and do it so it's really super obvious, so you can hear the difference. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna richen it so that it 4 strokes, and then we're just gonna lean it out just a little bit after that. We want it just to the lean side of a 4-stroking cycle. Okay, so I'm gonna start it. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Okay, so hopefully you were able to hear that really well. So basically, you don't want an engine so rich that it 4-strokes all the time. That's too rich. You'll get carbon buildup, and it'll follow you out your spark plug. But you don't want it to lean, because when it runs lean, it runs hot, and you're not getting as much oil lubricant into the cylinder to keep everything working. Now, the government likes things to run lean because they don't pollute as much, which I get, but if it runs too lean, you also have to throw the whole machine into the landfill because the piston gets all scored up. So there's a happy medium. That's why I recommend people use 40-to-1 ratios instead of 50-to-1. And I'll just show really quick. I have a piston here, in case you're not familiar. So this is the inside of a 2-stroke. And if you look inside of there, you can see it's all scored up. You can probably see the vertical scratches up and down. So this engine's ruined. And that's because it didn't get enough oil supply. So it's better to run these engines a little bit richer. They get a little bit extra gas, they get a little bit extra oil. And although that's not as good for the environment as running it leaner, throwing this into a landfill is also not good for the environment. You can see here, this one's smooth, but there's a couple vertical scratches. That's just kind of what this out of a lawn tractor, but this is just what kind of it looks like. So anyway, hope that was helpful or interesting to you. It was a long video, but that one's up and fixed, and hopefully that helps you get your machine fixed and keep it out of the landfill. Guys and gals, have a great day. God bless you. Talk to you later.